everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kristen, and if you're new here, this is a channel where I come at you every other week or so and share what I've been making. I do a lot of knitting, I do a lot of crochet, I do a lot of quilting, and many other things because I dive down many a crafty rabbit hole here on this channel. So if that is something that you're into, you are in a good place. Grab a cup of something and let's get into things. And yeah, I've got some fun stuff to share with you this week. I know last week I said that I was going to dive into my works in progress, my UFOs, just pull everything out and audit them and go through them. I haven't mustered up the courage to do that just yet. It's a little intimidating. It's a little overwhelming. So what do when all of that just scares the heck out of you? You cast something new on, right? Right? So that's what I did last week. Yeah, I know. I have no self-control. I don't hold myself accountable, and for that I am not sorry. But fret not, I will get around to weeding through my unfinished objects, my works in progress that are just kind of languishing, and figure out what I'm going to actually finish and what's going to hit the frog pond. So, but in the meantime, we can still have fun, right? So yeah, I decided to, I don't know, like I was shopping my hand-dyed yarn. If you don't know, I am the dyer behind Voolenvine yarns, and sometimes I have a habit of shopping my own updates and just kind of pulling from them when I find a combination that I really like. So I was doing a little bit of that and found this color combination. Here's my opal colorway and my Rochester colorway, and these are dyed on my Smitten DK base, which is a lovely, luscious blend of 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. So buttered kittens, my friends, as I always say. Yeah, just really soft. And anyway, I really love this combination together. I mean, this one it's like a very light sandy shaded brown with hints of peach, and then this one is just, yeah, it's a lot, it's on the rainbowy side, but like pastel rainbow, but with shots of kind of like gold, yellow, red in there. It's kind of hard to describe, but it reminds me of an opal, just like a multifaceted colors, and I just really like the way that these two colors play together. So I hopped onto Ravelry and started scrolling through patterns, and the Carillon Shawl by Leela Frankcombe caught my attention, and immediately thought of the yarn that I procured from my shop, and I cast it on, and here is where we are. Ta-da! And I cast this on last week, so I've been knitting on it fairly monogamously in between working on my Battenberg blanket, and yeah, it's growing, guys. It's coming together. Although I did have to rip back several times, and I actually have to rip back again because, I don't know, I was working on this last night while watching some Netflix and chill, and I did mess up on an increase. So I don't know how you can see this, but here is the center spine of the shawl, and here's where you have to increase, and then after a certain amount of rows you have to increase again. However, instead of making it down the center, I inadvertently made it on the side. So thankfully it's only 2 rows after the fact, but still, it's brioche, and you have to be very careful. Like when you're ripping back brioche or unpicking brioche, you kind of have to be very cognizant of where your needles are going, and you know, the loops that and holes that your needle is going through. Yeah, it's definitely not a chill knit in the least. I mean, it can be. If you're a proficient brioche knitter, if you're comfortable with brioche, it can be pretty smooth sailing, but it's been a while since I've knit brioche, so I kind of have to reacclimate myself with the muscle memory, if that makes sense. And then the lace part as well. I mean, I love lace. I love knitting lace, but there's a certain type of lace that's very meditative and intuitive. Intuitive was the word that I was looking for. You know, that, you know, you just kind of memorize the pattern and go like yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together. This one is a little bit more involved. So definitely all hands on deck, all minds on deck. And, you know, you just got to focus on what your hands are doing when you're working on it. Yeah, I mean, the lace is incredibly beautiful. I mean, and there were certain points where I did have to rip back as well. And there is a mistake in here. And I was just so not in the mood to rip back that I'm just accepting the mistake. And you really have to look to find the mistake. So I'm gonna let it slide, but see if you can find it. I'll hold it here. Can you find it? Can you see it? If you did, good for you. Good for you. But I'm gonna leave it in. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, having a lot of fun with that. It is, again, kind of sort of flying off the needles, and it helps that it's DK weight yarn. So yeah, I'm gonna have a new shawl pretty soon. Again, that's what I said about my Fruit Tingle shawl, which is giving me the stink eye in the corner over there, just waiting to be finished. I'll get to you, I promise, I'll get to you. But yes, the Carillon Shawl by Leela Frankcombe. Again, when it comes to difficulty, I would say if you're comfortable with brioche, if you're comfortable with lace, you'll have no problem with this. But you know, if you're fairly new, or you know, it's not really your jam, but you want to dip your toes, you gotta focus. That's all I'll say about that. So anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna dump that here. My Battenberg blanket. Slow but steady progress on this one. So, you know, I have joined some more squares to the blanket. I have been making more squares to go into the blanket, and yeah, it's growing. It's growing. And that's always good, right? So what I want to talk about with this is that, you know, last time I showed this to you, it was kind of all over the place. Like the way I was joining squares, I didn't really have a rhyme or reason. I was just adding them willy-nilly. And I realized I really have to focus on kind of squaring this out and kind of adding them sequentially, if that makes any sense. So I'll step back so you can see. So yeah, it's a little more put together this week. I'm just, again, trying to square off the edges because I realized I only have one more ball of this Gumi 50 colorway. So again, this yarn is by Bergère de France. It's their Gumi 50 in the beige, Imprim beige colorway. And I don't think they make it anymore. I think they discontinued it because I have not been able to find it. I've looked everywhere online, on eBay, it's nowhere to be found. So, you know, I have one more ball left. One more ball left, and maybe like a quarter of a skein over there. So I don't know why it's over there. I think I was playing with my cat, but anyway. So yeah, this is the yarn in question. So yeah, and I'm completely okay with that. I think that'll be enough to make a nice sized, you know, just simple throw that can go over a chair or, you know, a sofa or what have you. And I do have a heck of a lot of this yarn, the cream left over. So I can, you know, once it's all squared out, the center, I can just add a bigger border around. Using this yarn. So I'm not concerned, but you know, would it be nice to have maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 more skeins of this? Sure, I could, you know, make a giant blanket, but alas, making it work, working with what we have. And yes, I did go onto Ravelry and browse people possibly selling their Gumi 50 in the beige colorway. I did find 2, but they are in France, and I'm concerned about shipping costs. I don't know. Plus, I think in the past, when I've reached out to people selling their yarn on Ravelry, I've never heard back from them, so I don't know. Not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna roll with what I have, and that'll be that. Yeah, Battenberg blanket, and I should talk more about the pattern in case you're just tuning in. So the Battenberg blanket is a blanket, a free pattern by Sandra, a really, really wonderful pattern that I cast on during the pandemic, kind of let it languish, and now we're picking it back up. So that is all the knitting and crochet that I have to share with you this week. So without further ado, let's get into some quilting, shall we? Because I've been a busy quilter. I've been a busy quilter, my friends, and I'm not mad about it. I don't think I shared this. No, I started this last week, so I didn't record an episode last week. But if you are a member of this YouTube channel, you know very well what I'm going to show you next, and that is another finished quilt top. Oh my gosh, guys. Who am I? Who am I? Where did this come from? I started this, I'm pretty sure I started it last week or the week before. Maybe it was the week before. But anyway, the reason why I made this quilt is twofold. The first being my aunt, my grandmother's sister. My grandmother passed away a few years ago, but my aunt is still here. She's in her 80s. Love her to death. I was very close to her growing up. And last week I found out she She ended up getting COVID, ended up in the hospital. She's fine now. She's back home and everything, but it was a little scary. But anyway, it got me thinking. I love her very much, and I wanted to make her something special. And what better gift to give than a quilt? So, you know, I went stash diving and found this fabric. Like, I purchased it a while ago. You know, it's fabric that, you know, at the time when I bought it, I'm like, yes, purples, violets, you know, it's beautiful. But then as it sat in my stash, I was like, it's not really my jam. So I pulled it out. I was like, you know, I think my aunt might appreciate it. So decided to make a quilt with this. And I wanted to make something very quick, simple, and easy. Just something, you know, meditative, if you will. I'm all about the meditative projects these days. I can't explain it. And I stumbled on the Forest Lights quilt pattern by Missouri Star, and I chose this because it looked very simple, very traditional, something that I would enjoy making. And I mean, also the quilt blocks. Look how big these quilt blocks are. They are huge. I mean, I'll stand up so you can see. There's no way this quilt, it's so big, it's not gonna fit all on camera. I believe it measures 82 inches by 82 inches square, which is actually smaller than the pattern, the original pattern is supposed to be. I ended up taking a couple, I'll explain later, but I ended up taking 4 quilt blocks out to make it a full square instead of a rectangle. And it's still massive. And that's okay, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, again, what a great pattern, simple, quick, but I will warn you, if you are thinking about making this, lots and lots of half square triangles. And again, it's like I have a love-hate relationship with half square triangles, but this pattern in particular was really testing my patience because, you know, a lot of the Missouri Star Quilt Company patterns, 9 out of 10, all their patterns come along with a free video tutorial, which is great, especially if you're a beginner. But I was watching, you know, after I downloaded the pattern and I was watching along with the tutorial, after you're done cutting out and making your half square triangles, you have to true up your half square triangles. Anyway, I was watching the tutorial with Jenny and she suggested using a Bloc-loc. Now, I've talked about Bloc-locs on this channel before, and what a Bloc-loc is, let me see if I can, so this is a Bloc-loc quilting ruler, and what it does, it has this, if you can see, it has like this slot going diagonal through the ruler, and it's kind of carved out on the backside. So when you have a half square triangle, you lay it on top of your half square triangle, and the slot locks in, hence the name Bloc-loc, into the seam of that half square triangle. And then you can true up the edges, and you can actually slide the ruler up and down the seam to make it more precise. Anyway, it's pretty helpful and handy. The one caveat or one downside to these rulers is that they're ridiculously expensive. And I think I paid maybe $20 for this one. This is a 4.5 inch square, and I think I purchased this for another project. So they're expensive, but once you have them, they're there and they come in handy, like for this project. Granted, for, what was it, the Connected Stars table runner that I made, they also recommended a Bloc-loc rectangle, and I hopped online. That one was like $56. I was like, there's no way. So again, like, you certainly don't need to shell out for one of these fancy schmancy rulers. There are other rulers out there like this one, same size ruler. This one is by Missouri Star Quilt Company. I probably got it for, you know, whatever, probably like $10, half the price of this one. Again, when you start quilting, just like knitting and crochet, when you get really into a craft, you end up accumulating all these tools and sometimes double. That's what happened in this case. So anyway, same size, you have all these diagonal lines on here, which makes it super easy to true up your half square triangles, rectangles, what have you. So, you know, if you are thinking about getting into quilting but kind of sweating bullets when I said like $20 for that, don't be like me. Anyway, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that happening, just, you know, going through. I actually batched it. So I wasn't sitting there with a mountain of half square triangles, taking each one and truing them up. I would have gone insane. Not that I am already just a little bit insane, but it did help. Hang on, I've got another fun tool to share with you. It helped having this guy right here. So it's kind of like, brings me back to my DJ days. It's another story for another day. But yeah, this is a rotating cutting mat. It's really handy, and I got this for English paper piecing. But when I was cutting out my half square triangles, you know, I had my little I posted a video on Instagram of how, I assembled each block. I'll link to it down below, but yeah, it's just like a time lapse of me putting one block together, and I just had like this little area. I call it my Bermuda Triangle of quilting, where it's like, I have my sewing machine in front of me. I have my rotating cutting thing right here, and I have my ironing board over here, so I don't have to get up. I can just rotate my waist and get all the things done all at once. It's pretty genius. So anyway, having this really helped me out. But anyway, all that to say that I ended up taking out 4 quilt blocks from the final quilt. And the reason why I did that is because mostly just piss poor planning on my part. Again, this is what happens when you don't have a proper design wall. Again, you don't need a design wall. For the most part, 9 out of 10, I use my craft floor to lay out, my quilt blocks and figure out where I want to place things and how I want it to look. But with a quilt this big and all the half square triangles and having a cat, that was just not going to happen. I couldn't fit all these half square triangles on my floor. So I made a lot of low volume quilt blocks. So you can see here, just low contrast, just all the cream half square triangles in the center, and then all the dark purple quilt blocks on the edge. And when I laid it all out, it was the same orientation. I'll pop a photo of the final quilt top right here so you can see. Laying all of these quilt blocks out in a rectangular shape, it just looked a little weird, a little wonky. It wasn't very aesthetically pleasing, if you will. So, I laid these all out on my living room floor, again, because my craft room's floor is too small. And Dennis actually stepped in and helped me moving blocks around and seeing what looked good and what didn't look good. And again, it just really helped to have Dennis, a second pair of eyes, just, second opinion, giving me his 2 cents. And yeah, I was really happy with the way it turned out. And again, if you watch Kate from the Last Homely House, there was an episode where she's working on a quilt with her daughter-in-law, Anna, and she made a comment about how there's different stages of a quilt, like where you're absolutely in love with it, then you're kind of meh about it, and then you really hate it, and then anyway, she is so right, because while I was working on this quilt, I was just like, is this gonna look good or is this gonna look really bad? So the whole piecing of the project together and laying it all out and figuring out what was gonna go where, I was just like, this is a disaster. This is terrible. But in the end, I am so happy with the way this turned out. I was really surprised, but I am gonna quilt this on my Juki using my walking foot. Nothing fancy, just simple, straight, crisscross lines, which brings me to my next point, because I had some Orphan blocks left over. I had 4 Orphan blocks left over from this quilt. So 4 blocks did not make it into this quilt. So I had these extra blocks, which again, they're very sizable blocks. I think they measured 18 inches by 18 inches, which is huge. So I figured, let's make some project bags out of them. And that is exactly what I did. And I actually did list these bags for sale in my online shop. And they've since sold, so they do have a home that they're going to. So if you did purchase them, thank you so very much. It means the world. They will be winging their way to you this weekend. But here's one project bag that I made. So yeah, you can see the quilt block in there, and then on the other side, this is the back. So yeah, these are 2 quilt blocks that were left out of the quilt. And I did do a quilting job on them with my walking foot. And yeah, this is exactly the quilt pattern that I'm going to use on the actual big quilt. So you can get a little preview of what that's gonna look like. Yeah, and then I had these really nice heavy duty zippers that I've never used. I think I purchased these zippers when I was into garment sewing and I was gonna make a hoodie. And anyway, they've just kind of been sitting in my zipper box. And I was like, these would look so nice on the project bag. So yeah, this is what they look like on the inside, fully lined. And yeah, I even used quilt batting on these. So they're nice and soft and squishy, added a handle. So that is one. And then this is the other, project bag that I made with low volume quilt blocks. So here's the front and then here's the back. So yeah, put a little handle on it, and then I used a peach or like a neutral shade zipper I'll show you what the inside looks like. And I, of course, I did get some comments on my, I did post these on my Instagram feed, and I did get some questions about a tutorial or a pattern. And yes, I do have a tutorial on my YouTube channel right here. So I'll link to it in the doobly-doo up here and link to it down below in the description box. But it's a video tutorial showing you how I make project bags. It's my recipe. So basically I follow the same exact recipe, the same, formula for the project bag in that tutorial, only I adjusted the dimensions to suit the quilt block. So, it's a little bit of mathing, but nothing too complicated. And I actually went ahead and added some more fabric just to build the block out a little bit more, so it wouldn't be cut off on the sides. It does get cut off at the here, I'll show you the one with more contrast so you can see. Yeah. So yeah, I just added some extra fabric at the sides and at the top, so the points wouldn't get cut off. But on the bottom, I did do a little creative, get a little creative and cut that off. But it has this really cool effect on the bottom. Let me see. Yeah. But it got me thinking, even though I already have a tutorial for making a project bag here on this channel, let me know if you want me to make another tutorial, or I was thinking even kind of like an in-depth online course type of situation, like showing you how I make quilted project bags using, using scraps, using orphan blocks. Is that something that you would be interested in? Is there anything else that you would be interested in learning from yours truly? Let me know in the comments down below what tutorials you would love to see on the channel, and I will see if I can make that happen. But while we're on the topic of quilting, I wanted to circle back to a topic that I touched on in the last episode about pre-washing, to pre-wash or not pre-wash your quilting fabric. Because I know there are some quilters out there who are very, very religious about pre-washing their quilt fabric before actually quilting with it, and some who just really don't care. So I pulled a couple of comments, really helpful and insightful comments from people, and thought I would share them with you. Caroline DeBose, 5136, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, says, when I start a quilt, I pre-wash my fabric. I have been sewing since the early 70s, so shrinking my fabric first through pre-washing was the way to go. If I was sewing with rayon, pre-washing and drying first meant I didn't need to hand wash the item. Interesting. I have never used a charm pack when quilting, so I never had to deal with the fraying edges, making the squares too small. So that was an interesting take. Robin Marks 5638 says, I wash my fabric. You just never know what might shrink or fade. This is true. If I were to be using multiple fabrics from scraps or even clothing, if you're using different types of textures, me personally, I would indeed pre-wash it, because you never know what's going to shrink or fade. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. Lori Bush 9749 says, I always pre-wash fabrics for a quilt. Like a similar comment in this video, I started sewing in the 70s and my mom really drilled in pre-washing fabrics. Also, with the commercial processing of fabrics, it does help to remove the chemicals if that is a concern. So if you are sensitive to certain chemicals, you may want to consider pre-washing. So that's a reason to do it. J.A. Dufault 21 says, when I started sewing and quilting in the 1970s, wow, lots of 1970s quilters out there. Very, very fascinating. She says, we always pre-washed to shrink cotton fabric and remove sizing that was very likely added to the fabric to make it look nicer in the bolt. Interesting. Just like tearing your fabric will give you a straight line. Wow. Erlene Jenkins 4946 says, I used to pre-wash fabric for quilts, but I don't anymore. The sizing helps the cut pieces retain shape, especially if you use pre-cuts too. I've been quilting for 40 years, only pre-wash if making clothing. Yes, so I completely agree. I don't have any patience. Me personally, I do not pre-wash. But again, I will say if in the future, if I do plan to use scraps or different types of fabrics that's different from 100% quilting cotton, so like let's say a crazy quilt, which uses like a whole bunch of different fabrics ranging from quilting cotton to silk to velvet, then I imagine you'd want to pre-wash things to prevent wonky shrinkage happening. Mount hood stitches, I'm gonna go with that. Says, great projects in this episode, thank you. Regarding the crinkling of the table runner, love that look. Me too, me too. That is all cotton batting. So that is why my Connected Stars quilt crinkled so much in the wash, because it's 100% cotton. I had no idea. Normally when I use batting for quilts, it's like a 80-20 blend of cotton and polyester, I believe. So the polyester prevents it from crinkling a little bit. But anyway, they continue to say, pre-washing your fabric won't eliminate that. It's just how cotton batting behaves with washing. Wool or polyester batting won't crinkle. Hope that helps. Beautiful walking foot quilting. Thank you so much. Yeah, so anyway, I thought I would share those with you just to demystify or help you in your decision to pre-wash or not pre-wash your quilting fabric. But again, to each their own. Do whatever you feel comfortable doing. Me, I don't have the patience. I just want to get right to the quilting. So 9 out of 10, I'm going to skip the pre-washing. But if you learn to always pre-wash your fabric and that's how you've been doing it and that's how you want to do it, you do you. No judgments here. This is a no judgment zone. So anyway, all right, I think that is it for this week, my friends. That is all the creative content that I have to share with you. I do have another quilt that I'm working on. Oh yeah. I do want to talk about this. I want to put these bags in a safe place because they're going to their new homes. Briefly, I did start another quilt. I started the Shadow Play quilt by Fassett, and here are a little preview of the quilt blocks that I made. So yeah. We are in half square triangleville again, guys. Lots and lots of half square triangles. However, no truing up in this. This is just coming together really fast. Here's another block. And this is a quilt pattern from his book, Quilts in Ireland. It's the Shadow Play quilt, and I'll pop a photo of it here so you can see what it's gonna look like. While I wanted to make the exact same quilt in the book, some of the fabrics weren't available, so I had to kind of improvise. So, hopped online and found a bunch of fabrics in colors that, I like together, and yeah, we're just gonna have fun. We're having a lot of fun with color. I talk more about this over on my waffles, which are very casual mini vlogs that I publish throughout the week for channel members. So if that is something that you're into and you want to hear more about this quilt and projects that I don't always talk about on the main episodes that I publish to this channel, consider becoming a member. If you subscribe to the A Cup of Something or higher tiers, you will gain access to my mini waffles. I call them mini waffles just because it's me casually waffling on about what I'm working on throughout the week and, life in general. But no matter which tier you choose to join, you can get an invite to our private Facebook group, which is a wonderful place to hang out with other members, chat, share your projects, your WIPs, and also enter to win giveaway prizes for our make-alongs. Make-alongs, oh my gosh, I'm totally glazing over some things, guys. We have a make-along happening. Totally forgot to talk about the make-along. It's been a week. But yes, we currently have a make-along underway. It's called the Epic Make-along, and it's a year-long make-along where we are all endeavoring to make something epic. And it's such a loose term, guys, so if it feels epic to you, if at the end of this make-along you feel a sense of accomplishment, you've done something, you've made something that you're super proud of, whatever your craft is, you are so welcome to join. And yeah, the deadline is you can start whenever you want. You can start whenever you want. You can make however many projects you want. You can work on a WIP, finish something that you started a while ago that's been languishing and finish it during this year. There are no hard or fast rules. It's just a really fun excuse for us to get together and make amazing things together. So anyway, all the information is down in the description box down below, along with all of the other things that I talked about in this episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe down below. I'm putting out a video for your viewing pleasure every other week. And until the next video, have an amazing weekend, happy making, and I'll see you soon. Bye.